You can also have what are known as packet switch networks. Packet switch networks don't use that dedicated connection between the endpoints like the circuit switch networks do. Instead, data is chunked, divided up into packets, and transmitted on a common shared network. The diagram would effectively look the same. The only difference is that we will put little chunks of data on the wire and just send them out across the circuit across the network as opposed to establishing a dedicated circuit whenever we need to communicate. When we think about circuit switch networks, we would think of, for instance, on-demand networks that would connect and establish a communication pathway to allow us to transmit. So it may be dedicated, it may be there all the time, or it may be on demand. It may be something that we will establish when we need to use it and then break it down, just tear it down, and until we reestablish it, we don't send or receive anymore. Packet switch networks, on the other hand, would simply run across the common network and just simply send our data to and from. The packet switch networks are the common networks we normally use. Circuit switch networks are dedicated networks that you effectively get and you pay for from an internet service provider or a telco provider because you're spending you're spending money to get dedicated infrastructure. If you have a T1, or if you, in the years you have been interacting and working in the IT community, may have come across businesses or in your own business have dedicated leased lines or dedicated circuits from a telco or ISP vendor to do either your voice over IP traffic, or years ago you would bring in dedicated ISDN circuits or DSL circuits. These cost a lot of money at the time. Today, it's old technology nobody really uses much anymore. It's very inexpensive by comparison, but you may still have bonded Ts or T1s or T3 lines or whatever those are. Those are going to be examples of circuit switch networks that are effectively going to be dedicated lines that are connecting you to the ISP or you to the telecommunication provider, and they're there for you. They're always available and you communicate across them, but you're paying for them on a monthly basis. You're leasing them for $500 US or whatever it is a month, and that's going to give you that capability. The packet switch network, real example there would be your internal LAN, where we have the dedicated connections always set up, always available. They're already there. All the piping, in other words, is there. All you do is just send and receive between two machines. So you sending to the printer to print something on the LAN is using a packet switch network. You using your internet connection to go out and surf the web over a dedicated T1 that you got from ABC Telco is using a circuit switch network, if that gives you a better understanding or a better example of how each may work. When we think about these packet switched and we think about these circuit switch networks, we have to think about how we set the circuits up, like I was saying. Are they going to be permanent? Are they there all the time like the T1 is and it's always dedicated? We call that a permanent virtual circuit. Or is it a switched virtual circuit? It's created on demand whenever you need to use it, and then it's torn down when you're done. It's a dynamic circuit. We could have either one, right? So a switched virtual circuit is nothing more than an on-demand connection that's created when you hit send or you want to connect. We spin the connection up, we connect out, you run across the connection, do your stuff. When you're done, you run back, and then we tear down the connection until you need it again. Permanent virtual circuits, PVCs, are going to be there all the time. They're static. They're just there continuously, whether you're sending and receiving across them or not. And whenever you need them, you just go use them. It's just a matter of how the circuit itself is created and connected, so that way we know whether it's always on or it's on demand. If you ever used DSL, right, at home, and you were using digital subscriber lines, so back a few years ago, if you had internet connectivity in the house, you may have used, and you may still, depending on where you live and what you use, you may still have DSL technology. DSL could use permanent virtual circuits. It would use basically a dedicated always on. That was one of the key marketing features. It's always on, high-speed internet, always connected. So it's always on. It was a permanent virtual circuit between you and the telco provider, or you and the internet provider. You would have a little box of some kind, a little modem or whatever it was that they would give you and you connect through. And it created a circuit out to the internet provider, and it was always available. You could just use it all the time. That was a permanent circuit as opposed to a switch circuit that would come on demand. It's just a matter of how you would set them up. So just make sure you're familiar with and understand the difference between the two.